This is Facets of Connection, where we are transforming relationships within an evolving world. Brought to you by Relational Life Foundation and hosted by me, Sarah Melissa Oswald. This exclusive podcast series delves into the heart of human connection, exploring how we learn, love, and collaborate within a dynamic society. We'll uncover the power of respectful relationships and their essential role in the human experience. I invite you to embark on a journey with me to create a more connected, empathic world for future generations. In this episode, we'll explore the profound wisdom that wild horses can teach us about living a more authentic, resilient, and fulfilling life. Today, I'm honored to be joined by Neda DeMayo, the founder of Return to Freedom, a renowned organization dedicated to protecting and preserving America's wild horses. Together, Neda and I delve into the timeless lessons that these majestic creatures offer us. From living in the present and embracing nonverbal communication, to finding strength in community and embodying adaptability and resilience. Wild horses remind us of the importance of authenticity and freedom. We uncover how these principles can transform our lives and help us live more mindfully, authentically, and in harmony with nature. I know you'll enjoy this conversation. And with that, here we go. Have you ever felt the way nature responds to you? Have you ever sat in the woods quietly and long enough that animals start coming out of hiding? If so, you know one of the secrets of the natural world. It never knocks, and it never intrudes. Okay, that was a message on my tea bag this morning, but it seems relevant here. I'd like to start us off by inviting you on a short somatic journey to welcome us into this conversation. So find yourself in a comfortable seat. Perhaps place your feet on the ground beneath you. Or you might even lay down if that's available to you. I invite you to lower your gaze, or perhaps close your eyes completely. First, just take a moment to get settled here. Allow yourself to become aware of your inner experience and simply notice what it's like in this moment. Next, I invite you to imagine yourself in your favorite natural environment. This could be a location that you have visited before or visit often. Or if you live in a big city and don't have access to nature all that frequently, you might not have a place that comes to mind. So if that's true for you, I invite you to simply imagine yourself in the most serene, idyllic location for you. Take a moment to arrive here. Go slow. Maybe in your mind's eye, you have a seat on the forest floor or on a rock. Settle in to becoming part of the natural environment here. Take a breath. In your mind, I want you to simply name what you are aware of in this current moment. Notice your physical sensations. Notice the quality of your thoughts. Breathe. Go slow. Stay put. Stay present. There is magic here. Slowing down to the pace of nature has magical qualities to it. Now, again, in your mind's eye, I want you to imagine that you've been sitting here, present and peaceful in this very spot for maybe 15 or 20 minutes. And take a look around in this natural, beautiful environment that you've put yourself in. You begin to notice that animals are checking you out. You hear birds chattering away in the trees. Squirrels begin coming out of hiding. A family of deer tiptoe through the forest, feeling safe in your presence. A fox sees you from a distance and slowly, with curiosity, begins to move closer to check you out. And perhaps, if you're lucky enough, a herd of wild horses sense your presence and allow you to witness them in their natural environment. Take a breath here. Once again, become aware of any physical sensations arising in your own body. Become aware of your mind and the quality of your thoughts. Nature moves at a pace much, much slower than our busy human existence. Being animals of this land ourselves, the pace of nature is actually much more in line with how we are meant to experience this life. The conversation you are about to hear is with someone who knows this pace on a very personal level. Neda DeMayo spends her days out on the land that she manages, tending to wild, traumatized horses and burros. She is present to the wisdom that wildlife can offer us, both in the pace at which it moves and in how wild animals coexist with one another. Horses, in particular, provide human beings a bridge to reconnect with the natural world, or you might even say to connect with our own true nature. Horses and burros live in herds. They are communal species, just like humans. Living in community is primal to their existence and ours. As you listen to my conversation with Neda, I invite you to hold in mind certain questions, such as, what can we learn from these communal species to support our human communities? How might wildlife teach us to be in healthier, more respectful relationships? How might the magical natural world invite you into a somatic experience of yourself? And what happens when you allow yourself to bypass your own mind and deepen into your senses? Our guest today, Neda DeMayo, is a facilitator of human experience. She brings groups of people onto the land she manages for what she calls herd immersive experiences, where humans have an opportunity to slow down and feel themselves as part of nature. Neda is the president and founder of Return to Freedom, a nonprofit dedicated to preserving the freedom, diversity, and habitat of America's wild horses and burros through sanctuary, education, advocacy, and conservation, while enriching the human spirit through direct experiences with the natural worlds. Neda has worked for over 20 years on wild horse and burro issues, with a focus on solutions, and she's recognized as an authority on wild horse behavior. Neda works nationally to elevate the status of America's wild horses and burros through advocacy, education, media, programs, and events, with a vision to create a sanctuary model to explore minimally invasive wild horse management that could be viable on the range. Neda founded Return to Freedom in 1997. She speaks at national press conferences and education venues, and has even held government contracts to remove horses on horseback into sanctuary so that they're not dispersed or slaughtered. I'm thrilled she's here with us today, and I think you will enjoy our conversation. Hi, Neda. Nice
Hi.
to meet you today.
Nice to see you.
Part of the reason that I wanted to invite you on to this event series is that you hold this wisdom in you about the nature of horses. And there is such natural intelligence that we can gain from being with these animals. And you get to do that every day.
Yeah.
And being that part of our focus on this event series is about relationships, I'd love to focus on how these horses have taught you about relationship and what you see in their nature and how they show up with one another, how they navigate conflict as a herd, how they are present, and what you notice about your relationship with yourself as you're with them. Let's start there. And then I'd love to ask you lots of questions about your nonprofit and all the things that you do. I believe that it's our duty as human beings to bring our unique light into the world. My question to you is, what do you believe your particular light is? And how might that be central to the work or mission that you have for yourself and Return to Freedom?
Wow, that's a great question. When I was really young, I remember just sitting in the backyard, obsessed with the light and the leaves and the grass and everything nature. And there was something that felt like I never want to forget this. I made this agreement, or I made a decision about something that had to do with the truth, whether it was something I perceived in an adult, in a relationship, somehow different things. And so I think now my sense of who I am as a being is someone that seeks authenticity above all things. And I remember once when a very wise healer talked to me, they were pointing out that some people look for the beauty in all things. And I feel like I look for the truth in all things. And it's not always pretty, especially with relationships with people and what people do to each other, what people do to animals, the earth, all those kinds of things. So I think that somewhere in my 40s, I wished that I was a little bit more of someone who looked for the beauty in all things instead of truth in all things, because I think I made my life a little bit harder. And so when I'm with the horses, when I go out on the land and I'm with the animals, it brings me to the beauty in all things. And I feel more rooted in that. So that's what comes up for me is I feel that when I'm in nature, I'm in the reality of the beauty of all things.
You have the ability to both pay attention to the truth and to beauty. And it's a constant choice of what you place your attention on.
It's interesting that you pulled that out of it because you're very relationship oriented in your work. It has been a real journey for me to run a nonprofit and have to interact with people. When I'm on the land and I'm with the horses and I'm immersed in that, I feel at home. In the interaction with human beings, in all the things that you do on a day-to-day basis in an office and managing people and all those things, That's a struggle for me. My biggest lessons have come from that. And so it's not only learning from the horses, it's appreciating people in a way like I appreciate the horses, where without so much judgment and criticism. And I have to thank people that have been in my life because I'm a loner. I'm a big picture person. I'm also a bit of a perfectionist. So I see a vision and I see something and I just see that. And then sometimes I'm not conscious of how it's coming off to somebody else. So I've become much more aware of that over the years through mistakes, through all these kinds of things. Mhm. And so I'm grateful to everyone that stuck with me and people that have unconditionally accepted me and loved me and have really seen me, these long relationships and learning that level of trust and them helping me to trust myself.
People are messy, right? It sounds like for you, the horses are easier to love. They're complex, but they're simpler than human beings. They're not as messy.
Yeah, and this is such a great conversation because I don't get to talk about this much with anybody. I mean, no one's talking about this,
Hmm.
right?
When you're out on the land with the horses and you're in relationship with yourself and them, that
Mhm.
sounds like it's such a resource for you that I imagine having that time gives you more capacity to deal with the human beings when you go back into the office, if you will.
Yeah, for sure it does. And especially if people come with me and we're spending time in that element, we find there's sort of a rhythm that's established there, right?
I want you to bring us into that rhythm.
It's visceral though. I mean, that is the interesting thing. So we really encourage at Return to Freedom. I've always encouraged people coming and doing a herd immersive experience instead of people want to do video or they want to do this or that. And it's like, okay, we can do that. And that becomes where you're engaging the mind. It's completely different than being out in the middle of it could be a forest, it could be a pasture, it could be the rolling hills and the herds around you. There's something different that happens, obviously. And for me, what was always interesting is that I feel like an usher. Like I'm just trying to be the usher to like, hey, don't forget, we're home in nature too. Nature is our home. Most species know that. Human beings somehow do not. We use it, we abuse it, we dominate it, we use the resources, we affect everybody else and all the other species. Unnecessarily so, because we can have it all.
This perspective on humans trying to dominate nature reminds me of the work of Terry Real, a renowned family therapist, author, and creator of relational life therapy. Terry Real argues that many people suffer from a misguided belief that they can control nature, that they can control others, whether it's in their own bodies, their relationships, or the environment. He sees this as a byproduct of individualism and patriarchal thinking, which often position humans as separate from and superior to the natural world. Terry suggests that this mindset can lead to a harmful power dynamic and a disconnect from our true selves and from others. Instead, he advocates for an approach rooted in ecological wisdom and humility. This means recognizing that we are an integral part of nature, not its masters. He also promotes the concept of soft power in relationships. The ability to assert oneself while still valuing and respecting others. In the context of my conversation with Neda and working with wild horses, these ideas highlight the importance of approaching all animals and the earth with respect and understanding, rather than trying to dominate them. It's about finding harmony and connection, rather than imposing our will.
There is a way for us to be on this planet where we can thrive, we can enjoy music, theater, dance, good food, restaurants, all the things. but we can do it all in a different way. And I think that in a lot of ways, things are moving in that direction. But the business of planet Earth, the business of being a human being, gets in the way of us transitioning to positive options, positive solutions. Now, we wait what? How 25 years, 20 years for the electric cars to now become a thing because we had to wait for all the businesses to make the changes. So
Bureaucracy that gets in the way of fast
yeah,
forward. Yeah,
the
you know,
business.
what you're speaking to is close to my heart. I have studied environmental leadership in my
Ooh,
master's degree, and I focused on human systems. But if you back up and look
mm,
at living systems and human beings being part of the living system that is our planet, like that's the work that I'm really bringing into the world. But I start by focusing on human beings because if we can't get along with each other, then all those other efforts that we're moving toward aren't going to be successful. So my skill set seems to be in relationships with humans. So that's where I focus. But really, it's about reminding people that we are not separate from one another and that we're not separate from this planet or from all the animals that live on this planet.
yeah. And our actions have consequences, and everything we do has a result. If you're somebody that takes it deeper and you go into meditation and all those things, you start to know my thoughts have consequences. And what's exciting to me when I take people out in the herd immersive experience, especially corporate groups for leadership training and other organizations, and the minute we hit the gate, I say, okay, we're not going to talk right now. So invite yourself to observe what the questions are that come up and are they important? Do you need to ask them now? Those kinds of things. And it's interesting to watch all the way to the gate. People are just talking and socializing. And then within about 15 minutes of being out in the hills, there's a shift. And the herd might be off in the distance somewhere. And with our body language, we show that we are not a threat. And it changes the rhythm of the way that you walk and the way that you move. But even more exciting is it helps you watch how your thoughts affect the way you move. And the horses are so sensitive to that. So when you're walking in an authentic place, whether you're sad or joyful or just quiet, balance starts happening and the herd starts grazing closer and closer. And some of these people all of a sudden look up and the herd's grazing around us, like 40 horses. And it just happens by itself while we're just being there and part of the environment. And a lot of that is accepting that you're home too. And all of that changes the ecosystem, if you will, of how we are with ourselves. And so I think it's a real tangible way to see how our thoughts change the way our body's moving. And that's exciting to me because it's really helpful and healing.
It sounds like you do so much of that silently, that you somehow guide this experience in silence. Is there anything that you say to these groups before bringing them out about what they might notice in their own bodies or anything that you ask them to track?
Yeah, there's some exercises that have been really helpful before people go out there and sort of a general understanding of how they're prey animals. And if you just started marching out there and walking at them, they're going to run away. They're going to move away. So some of the concepts we're talking about here that we're home and nature's our home, and I hope they get to experience that. We might talk about that. We talk about how our thoughts keep us busy in our mind and to please try to um, calm the thoughts down because that will affect the way you're moving. If you're walking at a horse that has the ability to move away, that is sensitive to humans and predatorial movement, we might say, don't square your shoulders and just march right in. You want to maybe throw your focus somewhere else and you're going there and that suddenly you're closer to them, but you're not putting pressure on them. So it brings the conversation to pressure and how every one of us, and including animals, feels pressure and they will respond to it differently depending on the moment, on the day, on the environment. And we are all social mammals. So we respond to things in our environment. Like we're a product of our environments in so many ways. And that changes moment to moment, day to day. Sometimes we've used divining rods to show the electromagnetic energy that we all have or that we are. And the rods will respond from different distances and it can change day to day, moment to moment. It can change.
When you feel the pressure in the environment, what do you notice in your own system, in your own body?
Pressure to me would be when you're feeling an influence that you don't want to feel, or if someone's too close to you. Let's say that I'm actually working with a horse in terms of gentling them and training them. At what distance am I influencing that horse and their movements? If I'm too close, they're going to start turning to move away. Okay, I'm going to back up. I'm going to relieve some pressure here. And that could be a herd of horses at 100 feet away. It could be a herd of horses at 30 feet away. It could be one horse at 5 feet away. If I was working with a horse in a smaller environment, I always work in a place where they can get away. I never force them in a chute or a round pen or anything that's going to confine them being them. So if they want to move away, they can move away because I know that their natural curiosity can create a yes factor. If I'm in the right frame of mind, and it's really up to them. I don't want business of breaking horses or training horses or any of those things. So I just really enjoy the journey and the
Mm.
relationship.
So when
And so,
they feel safe with you, they can be safe enough to be curious.
yeah, they're naturally curious animals. Let's say there's two horses and I'm sitting in the middle of a field. One is super curious and just comes up a lot and smells, and it's their decision. They're doing it on their terms. That's the beginning of hello. And there's others that just can't get past it and they'd rather just be with the herd. That's okay too. So we have to be compassionate because sometimes you need to move. You might have to move quickly to shut a gate, open a gate, do different things, but you want your energy to be at zero, like you're invisible. And so we like to play with that. Sometimes we have to move around them and we don't want them to feel threatened and react from that pressure. Just waiting for them to initiate an introduction, a hello, is really important to start the relationship.
It's freedom that you offer them. I mean, it fits your title, doesn't it? Returning to
Yes.
freedom. And it sounds like you really do offer them true freedom. It's freedom to find that safety for themselves. I love the parallel, Neda, that's coming up for me as I think about your work and my work. Human beings also seek safety constantly.
Yeah.
There's science that tells us we're seeking safety multiple times every second, our nervous systems. And I work with groups teaching them how to create enough safety for themselves in their system, right? In their nervous system, but also in their collective group system,
Yeah.
so that they can find their creative spark, their curiosity. And that helps business teams do more innovative work, right? And so you're
Oh,
bringing
true.
business teams out onto the land and they're getting to experience that sense of finding safety in their bodies so that these horses can feel free. But I do that with human beings to find enough safety to be curious and creative.
We should work together.
I think we will.
Well, I think you'd love it. It's a wonderful environment to do what you do. Yeah. I mean, horses have always sort of helped humans in so many ways.
Well, there's a whole movement of equine therapy. What I'm really curious about is that you have a way of helping these horses reset or regulate their nervous system.
What I do is I offer an environment so that they're in a context that they understand. It's all about context. So, for example, we've had horses that were at a training facility with an expert, amazing horseman, and they were going to attack him. They were unhappy in a round pen. It was too predatorial. They couldn't see out all the things, right? The wrong context. They were confused. They brought the horse here. I turned him out on the hill, the sweetest horse in the world. Not a mean bone in his body. It was like he got there and exhaled Oh, okay. Now we understood the context. I could introduce myself out there. Totally fine. I could get my hands all over them. I could touch them. It's about context without being anthropomorphic. There is so much similarity between us with all mammals. I love how people like to say, oh, you're anthropomorphizing so that they can excuse themselves for treating an animal incorrectly and inhumanely. And I don't accept those excuses at all. Not with me, not with any of my staff, not with anybody. We know when we're doing the right thing. We know when we're doing the wrong thing. For example, we'll have horses that have been separated from a roundup that haven't been together. A lead mare wasn't with her stallion for 6 years. Introduced them here. They're inseparable. They've been here now, God, 8 years together. I've got lots of stories like that. There's so much about us listening to our integrity and really listening and saying, oh, yeah, do I want to be that person or do I want to be this person? Do I want to live in harmony with nature and the natural world? Do I want to live in harmony with these animals around me and these people around me? Or do I want to live in conflict and be aggressive and create pain and suffering? And I think that if everybody really asked themselves honestly that, a lot of the people that are doing horrible things on this planet would change. But people are so in a narrative of making excuses for themselves. And this probably goes back to the original thing we started talking
I
about.
was thinking that.
Yeah. When I was a little kid, I wanted to remember, when did I change the narrative? When did I make that story up? When did I say that? When did I think that? It was like I wanted to have an internal notebook. But I was so little. I really think we start telling ourselves stories from the beginning. And it's so much work to try to remember all these things. No, it's not. It's now,
Huh.
right now,
That
right now. Who am I?
that's what you get from these.
Yeah. Let it go.
You get to be present.
Yeah. In a way where you are comfortable in beauty.
Mm,
And that's not to say that nature can't be harsh. It can be harsh.
that's
But
true.
guess what? It's over in a minute. Like, you don't see a leadership horse pushing another horse out of the herd because they're being reprimanded for something. They were not paying attention, let's say. Horses have a big thing. When you're in a herd, you're only as strong as your weakest link. That's your survival. So the leadership horses might be always checking that the other horses are paying attention. And if they're not, they'll move them. So let's say a horse isn't paying attention, then they might actually bite them. They might actually kick them. And all these things happen, but then they're done. It's very rare to see horses holding a grudge. They especially don't do it if the other horse has corrected his attention.
How they manage conflict in their herd. There's not real conflict, actually. It's momentary. Do they maintain their herd? Or is there ever a moment where they say, this horse has to go?
Yeah.
Can you tell me about that? I'm
Yeah.
just
So my observation, and this is just my observation over the years,
sure.
is that the herd is a big community. It's the bigger community, and it's made up of smaller social groups or bands. So it could be a family band, it could be a bachelor band of young stallions, or young and old stallions that don't have mares with them. It's rare for a horse to be alone. That's just very scary for a prey animal out on the range. But it happens. It could be that a stallion lost his band to another younger stallion or stronger stallion, what have you. So they fight over that. Typical. Very similar to humans and other species where the males fight for the matriarch and the band of mares or the band of lions or whatever. Different animals have that similar thing where the alpha males will fight it out. And that's hard to watch sometimes. But ultimately, a loyal mare may choose to stay with her stallion. And you might see them trailing off out in the wild together. So they do have those challenges also within the band. And it's always different. Like I said, the environment will dictate things. I've noticed in areas where you have a lot of predators, you might have larger bands. Like a stallion might have his core band, and then there might be peripheral mares and peripheral stallions that he'll allow to come up on the periphery, and they'll work together in that way. But if one of the other stallions gets a little too close to certain mares, the lead stallion might push him to your place. So there's all relationships like this that happen. I've watched it even at the sanctuary, and I've watched it out on the range as well. It's also interesting to watch them groom younger colts. And then as they start pushing them out when they become adolescents and more sexual, they start pushing the younger colts out. That's when they usually form a bachelor band. They'll join a roaming band or they'll trail on the periphery. Because remember, they're herd animals. To be alone out there is death. They could join other bands. And some mares that aren't tight with the leadership stallion eventually might drift off with one of the other stallions, or a band stallion from a bachelor band might collect them up
Mm.
and they'll start their own band. So
So
things,
the whole herd is all the horses on your land.
yeah,
And you have
yeah.
multiple properties or sanctuaries?
Yeah, yeah, because we don't have a big enough spot. We have our headquarters started at the ranch I own in Santa Barbara County. Um, it's on 300 acres, and that's where we have a lot of infrastructure. We have our offices here. We are able to medic the horses with veterinary care. There's squeeze chutes and all those sorts of things. And we do tours here and things like that. There's more facility infrastructure here. Then one of our donors, just a beautiful family, the Carlson family, had a beautiful property up in San Luis Obispo, which they made available to us in 2015. So we also have about 100 or so animals there. And we're doing a lot of regenerative grazing now there, which has been such a game changer. So that's like a passion of mine now, because after years of sort of overgrazing and undergrazing certain areas, you go, oh God, the land's looking bad. So working with this holistic grazing, it's changed everything. And we're still learning. So we work with Roger Savory. His father's Alan Savory, and they do a lot of this amazing work, the Savory method. And we work with people like him and Alejandro Carrillo to sort of work on understanding more about the soil as a living organism. My best way to express it is back in the day without fences, before we interrupted wildlife corridors, and when we had large predators and large herds of mammals, the predators would keep the grazing animals moving all the time. And that movement and rest of the land is critical to the land's health. And we have to do it with electric movable fences and things like that to keep them moving as if they're being moved by predators, which I guess we are predators.
You're thinking systemically, and the land is absolutely part of what you're offering.
Yeah. The whole point of this work and the people doing this kind of work is to restore desert to grasslands by changing the way we manage it, whether you're managing the land for agriculture, for food, or for livestock that you use for food, or in my case, between the donkeys, the wild burros, and the horses and the cows, you definitely see the wildlife returning because the grasses are becoming more abundant and diverse, and a lot of insects, just a lot happening. And so we're hoping that by creating a healthy environment now, while we're getting the winters that we've been getting lately, when we do have drought years, we've already kind of created a solid foundation in that ecosystem.
You keep using the word diversity. And I know diversity is obviously important to the natural environment. It's true at every level of scale in living systems.
Yeah.
A diverse system is a thriving system. If you're feeling ready to take a deep dive to transform your relationships, you'll want to join us for the RLT Relationship Skills Bootcamp events. Based on the work of renowned therapist Terry Real, this workshop equips you with essential skills for building more loving, intimate connections. A recent participant said that this workshop is for those interested in deepening their understanding and experience of intimate relationships. This course is very concise, informative, and extremely useful. They said, I wasn't sure what to expect. I am very pleasantly surprised, and I feel I have practical tools to enhance my relationship with my partner. We believe that everyone deserves the tools for healthy, fulfilling relationships. And so, all relationship boot camps through Relational Life Foundation are offered on a sliding scale, making it accessible and affordable for anyone. I have personally attended the boot camp 3 times and can attest to the depth of his content. I learn more about myself and my partnerships every time I take the workshop. You don't want to miss this opportunity. Visit relationallifefoundation.org or click the link in our show notes to learn more and check out dates for the upcoming events. And now, back to our program. And I try to teach humans that if they're in a group, right?
Yeah.
Back to my human relationship. That's my lens on everything. If they're in a group, that we need to recognize and appreciate diversity as a gift to our system. Actually, we need diversity in order to thrive collectively.
Yeah. I'm so with that. 100%. Grew up that way.
What do you mean by that?
I've always seen it that way. I grew up, my parents were immigrant children in Connecticut. My grandparents came over through Ellis Island and ended up in Bridgeport in immigrant neighborhoods. And they were always totally accepting about all the diverse kind of cultures and friends that we've had, from Iranian to African American to everybody. And our family is multiracial. I am always shocked when I experience bias or I experience prejudice. It hurts. It's hard. I remember when a few years ago everyone was saying, I don't see color. Well, I see color and I love it. Like, I thrive. I think we thrive. Nature thrives. Everything thrives in diversity. Fear is the only thing that creates the problem with that and tries to select things. And that's just fear talking. And those are the choices. Do I want to be that person or do I want to be this person? Do I want to live this way or do I want to live that way?
I grew up with a similar mindset around diversity. I grew up in
Yeah.
Manhattan.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah. Just going back to what you just said, right? This choice. I'm struck by this because it continues to come up from you in our conversation. And you said that there's this choice point between truth and beauty. And it
Right.
sounds like you're driven by the beauty, but that truth is what actually motivates the work that you're doing in the world. You're not afraid to look at the truths and the pain that exists and let that be your fire.
Yeah, it's just interesting, isn't it? I remember when I was like, I must have been 4, 5, and watching something on TV where they were chasing wild horses and
Mm.
capturing them. I don't know if it was the news or if it was the Western. I don't know what it was, but I remember, I still remember standing there and screaming at my mom and saying, when I grow up, I'm going to have a place for these horses to be and they'll be safe forever. And I'm going to go all over the world and I'm going to tell the truth. And I was mad. And I remember that was the fire, and I never forgot it. My mom said horse was my first word. I had to start being with horses. Made her crazy. She found finally somebody that I could go learn to ride from when I was like 4 in Connecticut. And it was a British woman, and she had 3 horses. And I remember the little black pony named Smokey he looked like a wild horse. He was so cute. And I used to sit and stare at his ambery eyes. And I was looking for the wild horse in there all the time. And I'd always go ride my bike down to the neighborhood. In our neighborhood, we had a field with apple tree, and I'd climb the apple tree and I'd sit there convinced that wild horses were going to run through that field. Go down to the train tracks looking for them. So I obviously came here to do this. It feels really mission driven. And at a certain point in my life, I said, if I had all the money in the world and I won the lottery and money wasn't an option, what would I do with my time here? And it was like either go to Belize and disappear in the jungle or do this. And when I started to understand what was threatening wild horses out there on our public land and the battle over natural resources and all the political elements that surround and threaten their existence, I was scared. And I said, oh my God, people get killed over this stuff. And so I didn't want to be political. That's funny because it's a highly political issue when you get involved with trying to find solutions for wild horses on our public lands, the federal lands, state lands. It's all a battle over the land, the water. And of course, on our public lands, it's managed under multiple uses. So there's energy extraction. People can go camping and skidooing and whatever. There's livestock raising permits, there's hunting permits. And in 1971, the act passed to protect wild horses and burros on certain areas of our public lands. The Wild Horse and Burro Act was passed, but it's been gutted with amendments ever since it was created. Nixon signed it into law. And over the years, the Bureau of Land Management, they were the only agency mandated by Congress to manage wild horses with the help of the Forest Service. But it's a conflict of interest because they manage like 245 million acres of federal land under the multiple use management, and then 800 subsurface acres of water and minerals, and everything's for sale, for lease, etc. So the wild horses out there are there in a more esoteric fashion because the emotion of the American people in 71 got that passed. Today, would it pass? I don't know. And that's a scary thing right now, especially as this world in the direction things are going. They're always trying to eliminate them completely from federal lands. So sanctuaries are important for a lot of reasons, but also for the reasons we've been talking about for the human experience. But there's not a lot of countries that have things like public lands and state parks, and we don't want to lose them. I'm very concerned about that. But going back, truth can be scary.
Truth to be
The
very
truth
scary.
of things can be scary in the paradigm of the world. But in the paradigm of existence, of pure just existence, beauty wins time. And so it's like, who am I in this context? Who am I in that context? You know? And so going back to a lot of the things you're about with your wonderful work with people and relationships and interpersonal relationships, I feel like I'm a better human being when I'm with the horses. And I'm learning how to be a better human being in relationships because of that. And how do I bring that beauty to truth? How do I bring that beauty into my day-to-day relationship with the people I care about or the people that I have to work with? They're all different. They're diverse.
But
So
you are bringing the beauty to truth, to the human relationships.
I hope so. I'm a work in progress on that level, I think.
Well, we all are, aren't we?
Yeah.
I think that's really what it's all about for me. As I think about the work you're doing and I envision you on the land with the horses, and I can imagine what it must feel like in your body to slow down in that way and how that nurtures you and your relationship with self. And I think we all need that relationship with self to slow down enough to truly hear ourselves and to be present. Because without that, relationship with other humans is actually very hard. Relationships
Yeah.
are hard, but relationship to self is where it starts. And that's the beauty of the work that you're bringing to people.
Thank you. Interesting how, because we have words, we can say one thing and do another. We can lie. We lie to ourselves. We lie to everyone around us. You can even lie to a horse. And that's sad. But ultimately, to do the right thing, and if you're not lying, the relationship is honest and true. I think that's why we love animals and why they're so healing. I think we're always surprised by the intelligence of the natural world as if they're stupid because they can't talk to us. And that has to change. There's so much. It's hard to look at sometimes how we don't honor other species because we don't understand them and we don't communicate with them with words. And that is painful to see. So I choose to create an environment and to do this because I don't think I could have been here. Think why a lot of people gravitate to just hang out at the barn, be with their horses, especially since COVID. It's interesting when we had that pause, a big global pause. I think a lot of people shifted a lot. And there's this craving and need for people to just find ways to be and to live in their life.
As I listen to you, I'm picturing you out on the land with the horses and being with their energy. And I'm curious if that has been a force for staying true to your authentic self. And it sounds like when you bring people out there for these experiences, you're giving them that gift.
Yeah, and I just don't feel comfortable ever taking credit for any of it because like I said, I feel like an usher. I'm just saying, okay, I'm inviting people to join me, but I'm not doing anything.
But Neda, you are. You're doing this. You are. And what's striking to me is that you have known this was your mission in life since you were 4.
Mhm.
I am blown away by that.
I really love horses. I mean, just love them. And I love all nature. A lot of my time is spent fundraising or writing or talking to people or managing day to day operations on a ranch and making choices and things like that. And I think what I really want is just a large preserve with less infrastructure and less management because I think the world's going to need a lot more of that protected space. I see myself now just wanting to simplify. And the horses out there on their own in the wild, the ones you'll never know or never see, they do fine without us. They live, they die, they get injured, they suffer pain, they get eaten by predators. Things like that do happen. But that's the natural world. That's the world we live in. I mean, we murder each other, we torture each other, we do all kinds of horrible things to children, to senior people, all kinds of things, and animals. Those are the things that I try to reconcile sometimes.
Tell my son that every single human being has the potential for good and evil. And it's
Yeah.
up to us to choose which one we want to lead with.
Going back to what you brought up about horses, the one thing that I don't see with horses is evil.
That's what I was going to say. That human beings have
Yeah.
forgotten that we are natural and part of this planet. And what you're talking about, these atrocities that are happening among humans, it's not the natural way. It's not because we need to survive and we're trying to get food
Right.
without killing each other.
Yeah.
It's something that's unique to humans. And I think it's because we have forgotten that we are part of this earth, that we're not separate from it.
Right. We're all connected.
That's different than what you're talking about with predators and prey.
And that's just always plagued me. Like, how do you reach people that don't want to see?
Do it one person at a time, and I can tell that's what you're doing too. Every single
Sure.
person you bring out onto your property.
There has to be a desire for change or a desire for peace or a desire for truth or a desire for beauty. There has to be an innate desire. And I want to believe it exists in all people. But I've seen things, mostly on TV, the news and whatever, that you just go, wow, how do you reach there? I have no idea what that's about. And I have to accept it. So acceptance comes up, like acceptance that I can't save them all, the horses, acceptance that I can't take them all to the sanctuary. There's a lot of that.
How many
And so
horses do you have there?
they're not in one place. Altogether, we have about 469 horses and burros that we are responsible for. Over the years, I think I figured out it's a couple thousand animals that we have prevented from abuse, slaughter, neglect, etc., by working with other people as well. They don't all come through here. And so collectively, one of the things that I realized, whether you get along with other people in your business or whatever, we're all working together, whether we appreciate it or not. We're all working together. And what works beautifully is when people realize that, then you can really work together and do a lot more. One of the things that we started back in 2015, when the Carlson family let us use their property, we started the Mustang Conservator program. I wanted to talk about that because we can't save them all. So the conservator program in that situation was that we manage the animals there, we manage their land. Um, but we also have now expanded that to where we help other people who want to have sanctuaries to get started. So we can share our mistakes, we share our resources and not financially. Obviously, we don't have extra money. We're not a foundation that has enough money to give grants at this time, but we do introduce them to other experts and people that they can learn from and implement some of the designs we've done. And we send our staff to help people. to learn how to operate the hydraulic squeeze chute, to trim the horse's feet in a certain way, all the things. So right now it's not big, but we're nurturing a few other people that are startups. And it's really joyful to be invested in someone else's success because they have to succeed. We can't absorb the horses they're saving. In one case, some of these people have taken on our excess horses. So now we're really invested in their success. And I think that we should all be feeling that way right about now. If you're saving horses, you better start thinking about the fact that we really can't lose any sanctuaries. We've now got probably a total of 10,000 acres that's not ours in this program with maybe 300 animals that are benefiting from that.
Your work is growing beyond just your sanctuary that you've started, and you're teaching other people how to do this. It's huge. And I think that it's even broader than what you're talking about in terms of horses. I love what you're doing. I don't mean to
Thank you.
diminish it in any way, but I want to say there's a phrase that you just used that you said, there's such joy in being part of and witnessing someone else's success. And I wanted to emphasize that because I think that concept, that movement is so essential to our survival as a human species, straight up. That is essential to our survival. And somehow a lot of people miss that. And I believe that there's room for all of us to have success, for all of us to bring our brilliance to the world, and that there's room for everyone to thrive if we are tuned into the gift that we're naturally meant to bring.
Yeah, thank you. As we get older, we realize, God, I can't do all this by myself. I can't do it. We can't do it. Everyone, we're working together, whether we know it or not. We might as well acknowledge it, appreciate and embrace the diversity, and do things greater than ourselves. We're only here for a short time. So it's like, who do I want to be? Who do I want to be?
Yeah.
And we're learning. We make mistakes. And I think a big part of what horses have taught me is like, just own it. Just own it.
Agreed. Can I ask you one more question?
Sure.
As you talked about the two horses, the couple, the stallion and the mare wandering off on the field together, I couldn't help but draw parallels to humans. And I know you talked about anthropomorphizing, and that can be a dangerous thing. But I couldn't help but think about the fact that they might be in love.
Yeah.
Good horses are in love with each other. Do they couple up that way? They stay loyal to one another.
Totally, the bonds exist. Horses have parental relationships. They have personalities. They have a sense of humor. Oh my God, they're funny. They can be funny. Some horses more than others, like people. Oh yeah, no, all the things. These are social mammals. They're sentient beings, and there are deep bonds with horses between each other, some more than others. There's some that are more solitary. I mean, they're social mammals. And one of the things I try not to do is project on them what they're feeling, just like on people. However, I just watch what they're doing. Because I can't ask them, are you in love? What's love? I mean, if you asked a human being that, you could also ask the same thing. What's love? There's a bond that is so tangible, and they choose each other. And they
That's
choose.
what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The bond.
Yeah.
And you've told me a story of two horses that knew each other, but they hadn't seen each other in many years, and they were reunited on your property, and you've watched them recognize one another and come back together.
Oh, yeah. A few years ago, we rescued 18 horses that were captured in 2020 in Wyoming. And because of two wonderful photographers that knew them on the range and had photographed them for like 10 years, knew them forever, we were able to find them and gather them up. And we were able to put back together one entire family band. And then a couple of 3 mares that went with one of the other stallions that was on the range with them. They all came from a specific area. And we have them all at the sanctuary, but we didn't get them all back at the same time. 4 of the mares for one stallion were together at a holding facility, government facility, with 2,000 other captured wild horses. And the girls went in and identified the core mares. And then we got the stallion. And then we found 3 of his other offspring that had already been born that went to an auction. it was just really interesting. And they are all together. They are out at San Luis Obispo and they still stay together. They all knew each other on the range. There's a family band, there's a couple bachelors, and there's another little family band. And all of them knew each other on the range. And they are still together and stay together and move together at the sanctuary.
I'm
And they've been here
so
for years.
touched by that story.
It's amazing.
What a gift you've given them. You
And
sought them out
again,
and brought them back together.
and again, we couldn't have done it without the gals who were out there, Rhea and Meg Frederick. I mean, they were out there all weather, all the time, dedicated, loving these and understanding who's who. And they've even named them and they knew them. And so we were able to get them together because of them. We couldn't have done it without them because the government isn't rounding them up in a way where you can just relocate intact herds, which is sad. We fought for that. When you're working with the Bureau of Land Management, it's usually because of dedicated activists or photographers, advocates that know them on the range where we're able to save the pieces. In other situations, it could be that the horses were gathered on through bait trapping or other methods. We just saved 55, I think, altogether horses from the alpine herd that came out of the forest in Arizona. But they were gathered in traps, brought to Texas to go through an auction. Ridiculous. And then they had to run through all that. And then we were able to get a group of different family bands together. And again, working with someone else, a girl named Talia Fisher, who's there at the auction every month, saving horses from going to Mexico for slaughter and burros. And so we were able to get that grouping. And because they were gathered not with helicopter, but by a contractor who did it with bait trapping, we were able to work with another group in Arizona that knew a lot of these horses from out in the wild, who could tell us, oh, yeah, those mares go with that guy. And this is what we call him. And so working together, we were able to give these horses something back of what they've lost.
Neda, I'm so
Do it
touched by
alone.
this story. You're combating genocide
Yeah, in a way. Yeah.
in a way. I don't know if that term is specific to humans, but sounds like genocide is what's happening to these horses. And
Yeah.
you're a savior in it.
Well, people see them as livestock, right? A lot of people that do this, they don't think about, I mean, God. It wasn't, what was the time of Voltaire when people just did awful things to humans in the name of science without any anesthetic because they didn't think they had feelings? Certain classes of people were treated the same way and still are. So
Yeah, they
it's
still
this
are.
terrible.
Neda, they still are.
Yeah. So I feel like we can do this with the animals that are doing amazing things with humans. And your work is incredibly important too with the human element. So pulling it all together so that we can become more well rounded, like have more of our potential.
And we each do our part for the whole system.
Yeah.
So thank you for the work that you're doing.
Thank
It's
you.
touching and moving. Thank you for sharing all your stories with me.
Thank you.
To learn more about Neda DeMayo and her amazing work, visit returntofreedom.org. If you believe in caring about the animals on our planet and healing from trauma, please consider making a donation today to support the mission of these two organizations, Relational Life Foundation and Return to Freedom. If you're making a donation after listening to this conversation, please go to relationallifefoundation.org/natural intelligence. We plan to split the funds.
A regular monthly donation is so great because we can count on it. Whether it's $10, $25, $100, $500 a month, as long as it's regular, it really helps us build our donor base.
This was a very rich conversation, Neda.
Thank you for having this conversation with me. It's been
Absolutely.
great.
Thank you. I'm so grateful that you said yes.
Thank you. Yeah, I look forward to seeing if we do something at the sanctuary together. Walk a day with the herd.
A day with the herd and an opportunity to learn some relationship skills
Yeah.
at the same time.
Yeah.
I think we'll have some fun together, Neda.
I do too. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to this episode of Facets of Connection. If you have any questions or would like to suggest a topic or a guest for a future episode, write me an email or send a voice memo to sarah@facetsofconnection.com. This show is brought to you by Relational Life Foundation, a nonprofit organization dedicated to ending the chronic epidemic of loneliness by fostering community and transforming relationships. If you want to help us continue this work, you can make a contribution at relationallifefoundation.org/donate. Thank you in advance for your support. See you soon.